zło wojny powróciło i dziś o nim słucham w opowieściach kobiet w Sielpi. Oni nie są ludźmi. Czy pani widziała Irpień, Buczę, Mariupol? To nie są ludzie, to są kaci. Nie mogłem uwierzyć w to, co się stało. Żyłem w pokoju przez całe moje życie, a tu nagle coś takiego. To jest okropne uczucie, kiedy słyszysz alarm przeciwlotniczy, kiedy lecą rakiety i eksplodują nad twoim domem. Nie planowałyśmy nigdzie uciekać. Gdybym nie miała dzieci, zostałabym na Ukrainie. Czułam się, jakby ktoś mi duszę rozerwał. Ja mam nadzieję na lepsze, ale czasami, powiem szczerze, opadają mi ręce. Moja córka mojej bratowej muszą teraz z bronią w ręku bronić naszego kraju, dlatego żeby ich dzieci mogły dalej żyć szczęśliwie. Chcę wrócić do domu. Mam takie uczucie, że kiedy wrócę, to będę całować ziemię. Oni nikogo nie oszczędzali. Tam były bezbronne dzieci. Nocowaliśmy na podłodze, spaliśmy na kocach. Czuję strach, ból. Ciężko w ogóle przyjąć do świadomości, że coś takiego może się wydarzyć. Chcę do domu. U nas tam jest cała rodzina. Jedyne, co mogę teraz tutaj robić, to siedzieć i martwić się o nich.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I think we are all here and ready to start a good conversation, I hope, on Trust and Trauma Children's Perspectives. So welcome to the panel of Trust and Trauma Children's Perspectives. My name is Irina Kostake, and I work for an international organization called Community Organized Relief Effort. We are focusing on providing humanitarian aid and have been here on the ground in Poland, Romania, and Ukraine since the beginning of the war, since the first weeks of March. I have colleagues who work exactly in the city of Rzeszów, but I myself, I'm responsible for the operations of the organizations in Romania, and I'm Romanian. It's with great pleasure and delight that this afternoon I'm joined on this panel by wonderful specialists in child psychology. I have with me here today Dr. Zygmunt Ostrowski from the European Association for Child Development, Mr. Jan Markovic from the Subcarpathian Association for Active Families, also known as the Tutu Center from what I hear from my colleagues based here in Rzeszów. Dr. Amanda Sanders from Hope Worldwide, she is joining us from the US straight. And Elena Nikolayenko from the Future for Ukraine Foundation, based in Warsaw. I think for today's discussion, I will give the floor for our panelists to introduce their organizations as well as their projects that focus on Ukrainian children refugees, or the interventions that they are developing for this particular group. I will kindly ask the panelists to stick to 5 to 7 minutes when they're doing the introductions. I know that most of them have wonderful video materials or presentations to share with you, the audience. We will then have a short discussion on some key topics that we've agreed, and then we will open the floor for questions and comments from your side, from the public. Without wasting too much time, I will pass the mic to Dr. Ostrowski. please.
Bonjour, j'espère que vous comprenez français. If you don't speak French, I have to speak English. Maybe not so good like French, so it will be a political question. My organization, we created it 50 years ago in Paris, is European Association for Child Development. It is a scientific organization, as a university NGO organization, but also with the aspect of humanitarian impact. We are working mostly in children working in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and scientifically we worked also on children in war conflicts. This is one of our main subjects, and especially intellectual stimulation at the very beginning of life, not only from birth, but always before birth. Because the life starts for Chinese people at conception. Very shortly, why I'm here? Because of the war. We make, since 25 years, I am working in a war conflict country in Sudan. There's a civil war, and we saved 8,000 children, and only boys, and I adopted 26 children from them. We used art therapy and group stimulation to get them out from the war conflict and from the traumatized. We worked also in Afghanistan with art therapy, in ex-Yugoslavia with children who have been refugees in Poland, Yelena, and now in Ukraine. Very shortly, I will tell you why in Ukraine. In May, I was invited by the University of Rzeszów to give some conference, and they invited me to help to develop a detraumatization center in Ukraine. We started to discuss with Ukraine pediatricians, psychologists, Polish one, but to know about the traumatized, I needed to know what happened with the children. And to know what happened, I have to see them, to be in touch, to contact and speak with them. But child not always wanted to express about his traumas. He doesn't have his language to explain, or he even is not willing to say. Since he is not willing to say, since we cannot get verbal impression about his emotion and his feeling, we use pictorial expression. Drawing, painting, they are free to express themselves. There's no barrier to talk, and we are analyzing these pictures, but these pictures have been done not with a pencil, it's useless, not with a color pencil, with very high-level artistic colors. So we arrived again in July, and we studied about 200 children, Ukrainian children here. Yes, I will show you very shortly, s'il vous plaît, le slide. This was in Przemyśl, and next one. Why not next one? It's not working. Oh, yes. We found, the first thing was very important to see children who just arrived from Kiev, from Ukraine, and the railway station. Women had a special room, and children as well. And we asked children immediately, spontaneously, to paint. I brought special acrylic paintings, brushes and paper, and we asked them to paint. The second group was in the Przemyśl Tesco, big, huge camp where about 1,000 women are sleeping in the meantime before they're leaving. And we asked them about 50 children to draw. You have seen this, the people coming from Ukraine. These children, this was in the train station. They painted, and later in the Tesco. Oh, this is small 5-year-old child. Have a look on the black, very strong black color. 6-year-old, 7-year-old, crying mama. Even if the sun is yellow, on the left side, I will explain to you the importance of the left or right side, where they put the sun. The black line is very typical for traumatism. Have a look on this sun with a black dot and a child, 7-year-old boy, or this person, black as well, here like phantom, again a black, very thick colors straw. I will show you very shortly. Very important has been the heart. You know, black and red, they are very traumatized colors. And the red heart, with around it with the black thick colors, with the M like mama, with the black drops like the Yemenite, the Persians, 3,700 years before Jesus Christ, the numeric language. It come back, we can analyze and we can understand the children. As a pediatrician, I use pictorial expression in my hospital. If the mother is talking about a child, after 1 minute, I'm no more listening to the mother. I observe the child. I ask him to draw to better understand what happened with him and not what with the with the mother. Here another heart with a black strong line. Very interesting. Empty house, fast no window, one window. Again, very many drawings with a heart. Very black person with a Russian flag over there on the right side. A teddy bear, very sad, very traumatized. Look at this doll. This was a 10-year-old girl who drew this picture. It's important, it's terribly traumatized. Or this two black person and the Ukraine flag, running car, leaving the country. Again, an empty house with the Ukraine flag. Have a look on this picture. It was a 12-year-old girl with the Ukraine colors in the eyes. Beautiful picture, but very traumatic with black hair flying around. Blue sky, very dark picture with some spots. Or this was a symbol of Ukraine. This like Munch. Very, very impressive picture. How the child could draw in this way and make the eyes around. It is very important to understand what was in his feeling. This is a more military picture, the ruins of a woman staying around between ruins and bombarded by a missile. This is typical military by a 17-year-old orphan from the orphanage in Gdansk and Chef. There's another picture. And then, but there are also beautiful pictures, no problem, with traumatized flowers. And these children are happy. So you see some of the children. What I wanted to tell you, the colors are very important to describe. Have a look on this boy. He wanted not to paint. Many of the traumatized children wanted not to speak. They have been upset. And you have to observe them. It's very important. or this boy who was so astonished when he drew his first picture. He wanted not to draw. And later, when he have seen the other drawing, he started to draw. This girl who is with smile, who is happy. However, hope remains. The colors are important, and we know that there are 250,000 children in the world affected by war. 100,000 affected by violence. In Ukraine, 4,000, more than 4,000 children. In our study, I will finish. We make in 7 centers, in Przemyśl, Rzeszów, and an orphan center in Czew near Gdańsk. On 200 children, half of them are traumatized, 30% very heavy traumatized. We have to do something. Our vision, I will explain you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ostrovsky, and thank you for introducing us into the visual imaginary of Ukrainian children. I think it's very important that we have these representations before our eyes when we are to illustrate our discussions today. I would like to give the floor to Jan Markovic to share with us his work here in Rzeszów.
Thank you. Can I first ask for this short film that we... Thank you. So what you saw is Center Tutu, which is our project so successful that we're recognized by a lot of people now as Foundation Tutu or Association Tutu, which was a joke Irina made at the start of this meeting. But actually, our organization started more than 7 years ago here for principles of education, cultural education for children, civic rights, education for children, and such stuff. We're not a humanitarian one because there was no need for that in this region. But when the refugees started coming, we thought about how we can use our expertise and our experiences to help those that we can help. And to cut long stories short, we've managed to find great partners. Most important are here, Project Hope, not to be confused with Hope International. And with their support, we have established this center, which is like 300 square meters of greatly equipped spaces in the center of Rzeszów, where we provide psychosocial support and help to mostly Ukrainian children. The idea is that these children come here to us for whatever reason, maybe just to play, to give some time off to their mothers, and we observe them in a semi-structured play. We identify those that might exhibit symptoms of more serious trauma, and then we invite them to other interventions. It might be art therapy that doctor was talking about. It might be individual or group therapy, social skills workshops, relaxation techniques, and many other interventions that we feel would help them. As I said, we work mostly with children, though we also help their carers, which usually means mothers. Up to this point, since late May, when we opened the center, we have had over 4,000 guests as we like to call them. And we'll have the chance to speak about it. I think we helped quite a few of them. This is our biggest project, not the only one. We also, for example, have recently started a project in partnership with UNHCR and PUI organizations. And we reach schools. We go to schools also to talk to Polish teachers to prepare them for working with international groups. We have printed these anti-discriminatory books. This is one for kindergarten children, just a simple story of a Ukrainian girl in a Polish kindergarten, and a bigger one for school children. These are available for free. That tells a story to Polish children, what it's like to be a refugee, to help them see a perspective of the other. And there are many things that we have started doing to support Ukrainian refugees to the best of our abilities, and we are continuing to grow. Some of our partners are here, as I said. Shout out to Solitaire as well. Some of our future partners are maybe also here. I invite you to talk to me, to talk to our guys who see around in their tutu shirts, and we have a booth nearby, so I would be more than pleased, as my colleagues would be, to talk in more detail about everything we do for peaceful and great coexistence of Polish and Ukrainian people in this city, in this region. Thank you.
Jan, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and for the work that you do here in Rzeszów. I've been trying to purchase back in Romania children's books that address exactly this problem of Romanian communities now being together with Ukrainian children, and I haven't been able to find those in Romania, so wonderful that I see and I learn from the initiatives that have happened here in Poland. I would like to further introduce Dr. Amanda Sanders from Hope Worldwide. Amanda, you have the floor.
Thank you. Oh, I'll figure it out, I guess. Hello. Yes, my name is Dr. Amanda Sanders. I am an art therapist and mental health counselor from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. I have been working with Hope Worldwide since 2014. And Hope Worldwide is an international charity. They have they help individuals who are, living in poverty, who suffer from disease or have been affected by disasters, to deliver sustainable, high-impact, community-based services. We have been working in Ukraine with the program that I'll be talking about since 2015, but it did escalate in intensity and how many children we were able to work with and serve starting in February. But let's see if I can figure this out. Yes, so as one of Hope Worldwide's, we have many psychosocial support programs, as you can see here. One of the ones that I was really highly involved with was the Spark Academy, which used art-based resilience programs with children that were affected by major natural disasters in the United States. And it was a multi-million-dollar grant-funded project by the American Red Cross, which then we implemented. We would teach different domains of resilience with children and then supplement and support those with art and play, sport activities. We have a schema therapy program in Singapore, Japan, Children in War, the Teaching Recovery Techniques program, which I'll speak a little bit more about in just a minute, which is in part of our Helping Hand Ukraine. And then the support for seniors, which we also have in India, Cambodia, and Thailand. I'll get to that in a minute too. So what you guys really want to hear about is our Children in War Teaching Recovery Technique program. And what that is, it's a project that is aimed to improve the social, emotional well-being and psychological state of children and their families. We work with the families as well that are either internally displaced, or our reach has then also extended outside to some of the refugees. And what we do is we work to, well, first, the Children in War program was something, or is something, that was established by the Children in War Foundation. We've adapted it to be able to use within Ukraine and to train a number of professionals or teachers, social workers, therapists to implement this program. So we can reach more children instead of just serving them ourselves. We can teach other people how to do it and go out into the communities and work with the children in that way. And what the Children in War Teaching Recovery Technique program does, it uses cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to identify different, maladaptive behaviors, triggers, thoughts, and help the children to find ways to cope or strengthen their existing coping skills, and then implement that and find meaning with their traumatic experience that they've, now there's a lot more children that are, have been exposed and are needing this type of program. So the training in itself is only a couple days. It's like 3 days, and then like full day trainings. But then the teachers or social workers lead these groups with the children for like a couple groups, but are under the supervision of a psychologist, where they can help them with any challenges that may come up and problem solve, so that then they can take what they've learned into their communities and continue to implement them beyond what we are doing. These are just more photos that are from the Children in War Teaching Recovery Technique children's groups. And as you can see, they will they learn some relaxation techniques, they use grounding techniques, use drawing, play games, ways to be able to assume control over their traumatic experiences and to make sense of what they've been through. And this is just an interesting way to see just our impact since 2015. So in 2015, we started implementing this program all over Ukraine, but then with more emphasis in 2020 and 2021 near the gray and red zones and the front lines. And those were all offline, face-to-face trainings with the individuals. However, when the war started in February of 2022, the shift became to do in person, but also online was also available. So then we were able to work with these professionals or people that are working with children also outside of Ukraine, and then they could then work with refugees. But what's interesting about this, I feel like, is the number of children, the number of adults, which include parents, caregivers. They also attend a group so they can learn about what the children are learning. They can learn about their own traumas and how to work through that and support each other and develop relationships to see, hey, I'm not alone through this, or problem solve the unique living conditions they all may have. From 2015 to 2021, those numbers you can see are almost kind of in the middle, almost half of our complete program reach, whereas the other half is just 2022. So the amount of children we've served, the amount of adults that we've been able to work with, the trainers we've trained, the number of sessions, therapy groups. We also have some summer camps to continue to reinforce these different techniques. And number of attendees, I mean, that was like threefold, that we've been able to serve have been exponentially increased since February 2022. And then these are some of our partners that we were able to work with. So it goes outside of just what Hope Worldwide can do. We partner up and we work with people that are already in the community. We aren't sending in outsiders. We're using and creating positions for people to be able to work with those children. And we've been able to see that there has been just improvement in the children's experiences, but being able to reduce their need for more clinical interventions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. Wonderful to see that impressive numbers. So wonderful to see that you are able to reach so many Ukrainian children and adults and talk about mental health issues. Last but not least on our panel today, Elena Nikolayenko from the Future for Ukraine Foundation. Elena, you have the floor. Please introduce your organization and the projects that you've been developing in the past year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, partners, and friends. Today, I want to present you our foundation. Future for Ukraine Foundation was created by Ukrainian women when we ran from the war in February, and we found the shelter here in Poland. And thank you, Poland, and thank you all Polish people for your great help in our horrible time. Thank you. And you know, before the war, we was very successful. Our team was very successful, business lady, owners of the business, and top managers. And when it was happening, we understand that we want to help. We want to use the best what we do in our previous life to help Ukrainians. And we create Future for Ukraine Foundation. And it's a women foundation. Yeah, it's female, yeah. And all our directions for help, it's very female. we told that we care because we have medical help. We feed, we have humanitarian aid. We care women, victims of war, you know, and we help children. One of our main directions, it's children, internally displaced children and refugees. And one of our big project that I want to share our experience today, it's a children hub. 6 months ago, in June, we opened our first children hub in Warsaw, and it was a little one. And our goal was to give for the mothers a couple hours and safe place where they can leave kid in the safe place and to settle down here in Poland, because they need to have find a job, find the place to live, find something else, you know, paperwork, etc. And but it was our first goal. But very quickly, we understand that we do more. And for now, Children Hub, it's a center for psychological support, for adaptation, for growth, and for psychological support. But at the same time, now we understand that a little corner of Ukraine here in Poland, because in Children Hub, kids can relax from this language barrier, because all our staff, it's a refugee. It's very experienced teachers, art therapists, psychologists, speech teachers, and kids in safe place, and at the same time they can find friends. Because, you know, one of the biggest problem maybe it's that kids can express what they feel. They saw this all horrible things about the war, and no, depends from the age, little one or teenagers, they can't express what is this. And at the same time, mothers can help them, because they have the same horrible psychological situation, because sometimes they lose everything. And these moms need to build life from the zero, you know, and that's why it's horrible. And we try to work with kids and with mothers. For kids, we integrate in our classes psychological techniques where during the classes, kids with we use art therapy, we use different types of plays. They listen some fairy tales, psychological fairy tales, to understand how they feel. And we create this for kids. At the same time, we have a very big numbers of moms. We have these groups of moms, and our foundation now it's a base for psychological support from UNICEF, and we have these classes for the moms at the same time. And now we build not only the place where they can restore this psychological feelings, like psychological health, moms and kids, and we. For us, one of the goals to save the Ukrainian identity, because when we eliminate the fear and save this Ukrainian identity, they want these families, they want to return home, because it's a very big issue. When kids afraid, moms afraid, they don't know how to return. But when is fear eliminated and they have this safe place, they want to return home. And of course, we win, and we rebuild our country, and we build this future for our children. And I want to show a little video how it looks like, how our children hubs looks like. Please.
Thank you, Elena, for all your work and for being able to serve so many children who are now here in Poland. And thank you all panelists for sharing with us some of your techniques some of your methodology for intervening and working with Ukrainian children who are now in Poland or who are back in Ukraine, but experiencing similar life circumstances, war, displacement, family separation. I would like to ask whoever would like to have the first go to describe a little bit better for the audience and for colleagues what have been some of the most challenging experiences or some of the most rewarding experiences that you've had working with children who are coming from Ukraine or who are coming from other conflict or disaster-affected areas. What do you think are some of the major challenges in working with such children? What are some of your successes? Jan, I see you want the mic.
I'm the student who broke first. This is, before I answer this, two brief comments. First, we should at no point think about these children and youth as some unified group. They have very different experiences, resources, so that needs to be taken into account. And then you need to also apply appropriate methods to recognizing their needs. But there are some issues that are common or more common than others, and that you see. Fear for whoever is left in Ukraine, obviously. Uprooting, like the very sudden cut of all social ties, or almost all social ties with their age mates, classmates, and so on, and need to find new. For older siblings, and when I say older, I don't necessarily mean an 18-year-old, it may be a 10-year-old being a father or a second mother in their home, and they're not equipped to deal with that at that age. Difficulties in adaptation at schools. And by the way, this is also important. Whatever I say during this presentation, I'm talking from the experience of dealing with certain children. There are large groups of children that we don't reach for whatever reason, because they're in a smaller city, because they are online learning and they don't go to school, because their families or the carers, mothers have so little resources. I don't say even financial resources, but language, strength of will, whatever, that they spend their whole days in shelters and they never reach us. So that's also to be I think, taken into account. So there are certain typical problems, and they express in a variety of ways, but some of the more typical ones can be aggression, or it can be seclusion. It's rarely crying a lot. It can be depression, obviously. And it's really about trying to get a better hold of what a given child needs and providing a technique and a specialist and a method that's better for them, best for them.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. In our case, one of the, during this work, one of the, not the difficulties, but maybe I want to share, this experience, it was to find one technique that to open teenagers. You know, because teenagers, it's different. Little one kids, they very quickly start to draw pictures, and you understand if you need this, during these classes, very quickly restore this psychological support. But teenagers, for teenagers, when we start these theater classes and improvisation classes, it was very good. It works for teenagers very well. During these theater classes, they try to, because they can't, to hide this. Yeah, and it works very good for teenagers. And I think it's that I want to share today about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important to make this distinction also between the needs of different age groups in the of the children that you are working with. Dr. Ostrovsky?
Yes, I have 3 comments. You know, we have to know what was the reason that the children come to Europe, to France, to Poland. Why they left their house? The importance of bombing, or the noise of siren, or to find the place in the shelter on the cave, in the black cave, alone with the mother, with the father, brother or sister. It's very important to know what was the reason which will leave a very long time. The Ukrainian child psychologist Katrin Goldsberg said that the scare of in the brain will live for weeks, months, and I will tell you that for years even, if we are not acting immediately to detraumatize them. The second point is this, what you underlined, the age group. The most sensible age group is the puberty age. In girls, 10, 12, and boys, 12, 14. This age group is extremely sensible and have a very great impact on the whole life. And the third approach is, do the mother have to take care for the child? I do not agree. The mother, she is traumatized, maybe much more. She wanted even not to show, but the child feels the mother. The mother may not show what happened with her, but the child feels what is in her brain, what is her, how it's her heart, what does she feel. And this is very important to separate. If you wanted to detraumatize a child, you have to detraumatize it in a stimulating group with other children, far from the mother, far from the impact of the traumatized. Let us see later during the discussion. We will add some more comments.
Okay, I see already a hand raised for a question of from the audience, but let's keep that for later and let's continue our panel conversation. Amanda.
Yeah, I'll just answer real quickly. I would say one of the things just in disasters in general that's been a challenge working with children or adolescents is the environments in which we tend to work in. Just establishing a safe space for them to feel comfortable, whether it's creating artwork or talking with each other. And so sometimes it just is even like using chairs or something to like mark off an area and create your little, little spot. But another thing is when working with adolescents and in Ukraine, our team we've talked a lot about different stories and children, but being able to, a lot of times some of those adolescents will take on those responsibilities of, not wanting to burden their parents too with what they're feeling because they know they're already going through so much. But then that they, in our groups, they've been able to kind of pull them out a little bit because they see that they can help their peers because they want to help their peers to be able to get better and then take what they learn in those lessons and bring it home and working with parents on what they've learned and then both practicing together different coping skills. So that's been one of the rewarding aspects.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your interventions. I was wondering, you've been mentioning the importance of having early on interventions, like intervening as soon as possible, and we are now 10 months into this shared experience of war and displacement. What do you think are the needs that children have at the moment, children and families have at this moment? How do you envisage that these needs will change in, let's say, a year from now in the future? Anybody?
Oh, I can start.
Please, go ahead.
Since I already have the microphone. I know that while the war is still ongoing and while there is still the threat of additional traumas, that a lot of the needs will be just the coping skills and being able to just kind of get through this. But a year from now, when we're going to be looking at victory, but that's when the processing of the traumas will be more likely to happen. So right now, it's really just kind of helping to get through the time we're in. But then when we have distance from it, they're able to process those more. So that's what I would say for now.
So coping rather than coping and then processing in the year-long term. Other.
Just to add one sentence to what Dr. Sanders just said, for those families for example, in Rzeszów for half a year or more now, that time of find a job, if you can, find a place, is past. From what we observed working with adult beneficiaries is right now uncertainty of the future is the most common chronic stressor for them. Like they don't know what will happen, and that really taints their functioning, everyday functioning.
Yeah, the inability to sort of be present. It's more about
The
always-
plan, like,
Yeah.
do I look for a job? Do I send my children to school? Or maybe I just let them stay online because in 2 months something will happen. Yeah, they're coping with something different than they were coping. And as we know, like as psychologists, we know that until you fight for something, your body mobilizes, your brain mobilizes, but then when you have time to reflect, is when sometimes the real danger creeps in.
Dr. Ostrovsky, do you want to add anything to?
I think we do not know how long the children will be stay in Poland or in any other countries. We know as well that very often the mother who's with a child, like the last examples in Germany, many women left to Italy. After 2-3 weeks, they come back to German government said, no more. You choose to go to Italy for 2 weeks, you wanted to be at the beach, don't come back to Germany. You choose Germany, stay here. And for the child, it's important to be in the same place and not always to change. But the most important for the future, when the child is coming back to Ukraine, they will come back. But there will be a second traumatism. The child will not find the house, maybe the apartment, will not find the doll, will not find the grandfather, maybe not the father, will not find the same school. And this traumatized will be the second very important traumatized in Ukraine. That is why we have to think how to organize in Ukraine, how to develop it. Maybe someone will have another comment.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true. Families will be returning to a different Ukraine than the one that they have left from many perspectives. And I have to say that Jan, I made also this observation, seeing what's the situation in Romania. That indeed the moment of the problem of finding personal resources to imagine a present that is rewarding for the families that are there is actually keeping them in this limbo state, sort of what's going to happen in the. Yes, I see loads of questions. Elena, did you want to add anything? No. Okay, so then let me open the floor for questions, as I see so many. I see a lot of hands, and probably we don't have a mic. Yeah.
Thank you very much to the entire panel. Appreciate it. Maybe cry a few times. My question is a follow-up to the doctor's last statement that he's made. So there's a lot of change. There's a lot of limbo. Perhaps migration for a long time, right? So we don't know where children and families are going to end up. Can you give us some of your best advice on coping? I'm a safeguarding advisor for AmeriCares, and I like to also pass on some, quick solutions. Sorry for the quick, but something that a migrant could use, right, as they're passing through all these stages and perhaps returning to Ukraine sooner than later. Thank you.
It's difficult to answer. I will give you an example of the past in Sudan. We found 8,000 boys only, 6 to 13 years old, in a camp. It was a civil war in the South Sudan, in the rebels' war, and the 8,000 boys naked, fast naked, dying every day. We buried 50 children. We tried to get them out from the traumatized through art therapy. Can you imagine that today, between the 26 boys which I saved, I adopted, 24 finished the high university level. They are working as professors at the university, pilots in the planes, businessmen, lawyers, and they I didn't allow them to come to Paris. I refused to come. The places in their country, we help them to develop the country. This is a team, the intellectual team. That is why also for Ukraine. Since the high rate of trauma between the Ukrainian children we studied who arrived to Poland, and between the March and July, and where the traumatized was following over the time, it seems to us it's important to advise, to organize the traumatization center through art therapy and group stimulation. As you know, WHO recently and UNESCO thinks that it would be very important to use art therapy to detraumatize children through free pictorial expression. It makes it possible for children to escape trauma and to leave the impact of throws through creation of an imaginary universe through painting, and at the same time intellectual stimulation, because painting is thinking, expression, it is intellectual stimulation. And we know that in this period of life in children, intellectual stimulation is very important. The new Ukrainian generation have to be very well developed to take in their hands the future of the beautiful country and to be able to replace the leaders and to find the way to live in peace. I hope very much that we can help to create such a centers in Ukraine. We have some projects about.
Thank you. I see, Amanda, do you also want to answer this question, or shall I?
Sure. I would say that you can strengthen and ask about past coping skills that they've used to be able successful in other situations. That's one quick and easy way because you're drawing on something that they've already done. But I love art therapy for so many ways that it can help children to be able to express themselves in ways they don't have vocabulary, but I'm going to be honest, sometimes it's expensive. Or, we can give art materials, but they only last so long. So in my experience in working with disasters, you go in situations with children that don't have anything. They might do art at your center, but they don't have anything when they go home. So it's really being able to problem solve and think through, how can I translate this to if they literally had nothing? Can we, if we're doing a breathing exercise with paint, where we're kind of breathing in and we breathe out and kind of pretend to blow the paintbrush across the page. Well, if they can't do that because they don't have paints at home, maybe we can do that with our, now imagine doing that with your fingers or with water or, something on the ground where it will dry up. But you have to think through, okay, but if they don't have this later, how can they still do it?
Yeah, so I'm Graziella Piga from Project Hope, the Regional Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Director. And so I have a comment and a question. Actually, I'm really happy that you talked about the age group and adolescent, because we work with several organizations, including PSAR. And one of my points is always, okay, what can we do for adolescent? Because it's a difficult group to reach. So perhaps, if you could just share, also other, activities, something that we can do to reach this group that obviously doesn't go to the child-friendly spaces, because kids are brought there by parents, but adolescents do not go. And this is a very difficult period of their life. I'm the mother of an adolescent, so I can see already without the war how difficult is this transition period. So I cannot imagine what it is when plus there is a war.
And my second point is like, I made a presentation this morning, so for this reason I talked to the psychologist that Project Hope supports, and actually our staff as well in Ukraine and in Moldova and here in Poland. And all of them talked about something that it's kind of mentioned, but not very openly, which is really this increased aggressivity of mothers towards kids. Increased violence, even physical violence. And I was wondering, what can be done? Because it's clear that these mothers are under huge stress. They are overwhelmed. Many of them, they're living in collective centers. They're missing their network. But then there is this repercussion on the kids from the person that they should trust, and there is another trauma. So I wanted to know from the specialists, how we can actually address these challenges.
Well, as Graziella knows, it's harder to reach teenagers because they don't want to go to. They have the personal resources to just hang around together, and they don't need help. The things that we are starting doing more and more is that initially it was whoever comes to Tutu and try to help him. We are, as months pass and we're getting more organized, we now reach schools and we already have classes, groups who are older. It's a small project, which was originally not quite looked this way, but we've had this empowerment, anti-discriminatory projects for teenage girls, and we're just starting one when half of the group will be Ukrainian refugee girls. So that's another small group. Like, there's a limit to our capacity, but we try to reach those that age group with things they might be interested in. And the other thing, it's you're absolutely right that we don't talk about this on an anecdotal level, on a more specific level. Just one anecdote: we had an aggressive boy in our center who would pick up fights with other children. We mentioned that to his carer when she came back to pick him up, and she started beating the living crap out of him right there on the spot. And then we talked to her, not me, it's our specialists, and we disarmed the situation. It comes down to that it was his grandmother who was, I now don't remember the number, 6, 7, 9 grandchildren under her supervision. Now, there's no way, or another anecdote from a shelter, a 2-year-old kid spending 16 hours a day on a smartphone, because the moment he puts down the smartphone or somebody takes the smartphone from him, he starts screaming at the top of his lungs. And everybody in the shelter hates that woman, his mother. And then shows up when there's aggressiveness towards children. A professor mentioned that the children need to be taken away, and in a sense that is true, but I don't quite out elaborate on that. We cannot deal with children fully, efficiently, unless we deal with their carers, well, mothers in this case, at the same time or separately. And I can go to anecdotes like, here we work with a boy or a girl, here we work with his mother or grandmother on her issues, on her problems. And it doesn't have to be even a deep psychological, long-term therapy. It might be just giving that lady a time off. Like, I have 2 kids about that age. I love them more than anything else in the world, and I would still sometimes pack them into a plane and send them away. And everybody who's a parent, that. But we're laughing because we know, that's sometimes what I feel like doing, and I do it in a metaphorical sense. I tell my wife, do it. I go out today. Tomorrow we change. Or I say, I'll lock myself up in my room and I read a book. These mothers, they're in a single room with, say, 2 children for months, and there's no 1 hour when they can be separate. Like, that's not a life to be lived with mental stability. And then they act out, and just what we do, what I absolutely believe is, and I think you mentioned it, what happens in your center in Warsaw is just give those women some time off, and it's a huge help.
Yeah, thank you. I want to add about this, we opened the group for teenagers maybe 3 months ago. And we're thinking about how we can invite them because they don't want to go anywhere. And first classes that we present for the teenagers because sometimes it's 2-3 kids in the family and little one going to children hub and the teenagers live home, but we present the classes like modern, like how to work with TikTok, how to do some videos for Instagram. And it was like one point that, oh, I need to know about this. And they go to the classes, and it was, we create the group, they meet, they try to meet each other, find friends, and then we work with the theater classes and etc., and we try to find what the interest, and this interest to use like a first point to the contact, and then to use, and it works. Now we have a big, very, very big group of teenagers that works with our therapeutists, with psychologists, with our therapists, and then we increase the numbers of classes that they interest.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yes, from me. Thank you very much. My name is Anastasia Bertilovich. I'm a pediatrician from Kiev. And I was continuing my work from the very first day of the war, and I'm continuing my work in Kiev now. The first, I want to say thank you with all my heart for saving happy childhood for our children, because that's our main goal, to give them normal life in this abnormal world. So the first is thank you. And the second, I could tell you that we have a very interesting problem. We are not ready for this problem. The problem in families of militaries, because the first thing was its separation. The children were separated from parents, from moms, from dad, and then when they came back from the war, they understand that the rules are changed. Everything is changed, and that was a very, very big problem. So the other problem that we had, that we all were not ready to be a psychologist. We're just pediatricians. Yes, all pediatricians, they're a little bit clones, a little bit psychologists, but we were not ready to speak with them. We were not ready to speak with children who are traumatized physically and emotionally. Everybody, because every child in Ukraine, is he evacuated or is he stayed? It absolutely doesn't matter. Is he refused his limb, or if he just saw how somebody shoot it, he is traumatized already. And we were not ready. So we need something, maybe somebody here in the audience will help us with something like small trainings, or maybe some small rules how to speak with, not for psychologist group, because you are professionals, you know how to do it, but for us. And the last thing that we saw, the problem which we have now, is the problem with long-lasting projects. That's more about adolescence, have you told, but maybe in schools, maybe in kindergartens, maybe somewhere. But we need something not pointedly, but for a long-lasting. And that's, yeah. So thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for your comments. Very thought-provoking comments, and I see already a clap of.
Sorry, I would just add to this question. Yes, are there any programs or initiatives for the people staying in Ukraine? I mean, for children that are in Ukraine, for organizations that work with Ukraine. We work with orphanages, for example. So this is very interesting question.
Amanda?
Yeah, I'm very quickly about what we do for internal displaced kids in Ukraine. This children hub model is show us that it's work very good. This approach, and we understand that we want to build these children hubs not only like in the European city where we have a lot of refugees, and we understand we want to do something inside Ukraine because we have an internal displaced person. And one of the big projects that will be opened in end of January January, it will be Children Hub for kids with autism spectrum disorder in Lviv. Because, you know, in Ukraine, we have a very big problem with this. Now in Lviv, we have 800 kids that internally displaced with autism spectrum disorder. They don't have any support and care because parents lost houses, lost jobs, and they don't have money to pay for the kids for these classes. And we build this children hub for this type of for these kids, and it will be 100 kids we can help from 3 to 7, because it's this window, the main window where we can help exactly for these kids. And it's our project in Ukraine now. And of course, we try to think about how we can share it. But of course, you know, all these projects that Janusz said, it's we need donors, we need sponsors, we need patrons, because it's a lot of money that we need to spend for grow this, because it's everyday administrative payments, you know, and that's why we have experience, we have this exactly what we do, we know, and we want to share it, we open it for cooperation. Yeah, thank you.
And what we're doing is already existing in Ukraine, and it has been since 2015, and it's expanded, so I'd be happy to connect you with our contacts there. It would be interesting to see how it applies within an orphanage, because the children then live with each other. They're not coming from, you know, another area to a group and then leaving. But what our program does is it pays for, it's free training for people that work with the children. So social workers, you know, therapists, teachers, things like that, that helps them to be able to lead a group of children. It's small, and they'll be separated by age, you know, things like that. But to be able to learn these different ways to deal with these hard feelings, to be able to develop better maybe sleep patterns, things like that. And then it's a 7-week, 1 time a week, 2 hours, you know, or you might be able to adapt it working with, you know, this, you know, the supervisor and the psychologist over, you know, in Ukraine that you can speak with. But I think that, I mean, that's already been existing. It's been going on for a while, and might be something that you might be interested in. Yeah.
Dr. Ostrowski, did you also want to add something?
Just to tell that autism is very important. We have to be very careful for children with autism and children traumatized, not to send to psychiatrists. I had a child in Paris last month. He was with autism, and he was sent to the psychiatric. He was treated as schizophrenic, and it is very dangerous to get him out. We have to save the traumatized children without psychiatrists, even without psychologists. It is very easy with well-trained, normal people in schools, in camps, in holiday camps, and nurseries.
I wanted to go back to one of the comments in the room about how as professionals in childcare or as professionals working in humanitarian aid, we all need to become a little bit more mental health literate, so to say. I think this is what one of the needs that I see coming out of this panel discussion and out of my own work and out of your comments. And I think, yeah, that's one area that perhaps needs development. But again, before I take a few more questions from the audience, I was wondering whether the panelists, this is very much a work in progress from what I hear from all of you. It's about testing and adapting interventions and methodologies to this context, which is a new context for everyone. So I was wondering if you have learned any lessons from adapting from these past months, and if you have any messages for donors, policymakers, the general audience. What do you think are some of these lessons of the past 10 months? It can be about, you know, better financial support for mental health services. It can be about, I don't know, targeted interventions for groups such as adolescents. It can be about what I'm curious to see what's your experience. Jan, is it?
I see we have about 7.5 minutes left, and all I need to answer this question is 7.5 hours. No, the one thing that we've absolutely learned and convinced is that we absolutely have to be flexible and adaptable. Say what you need to adapt. You need to adapt. Like it's changing so quickly, and we're learning so much as a regional organization. There's some like Amanda's organization has a lot of experience. For us, this was not a new, but so every day we learn something new. We have to adapt our programs. We have to recruit new staff or change their positions, you know, because we learn that they do something else better. It's a constant discussion. The things we expect from bigger organizations, bigger partners, authorities, is to trust us in many ways, and we've had that fortune to believe in our competences and expert experience that we can deliver. One day, most of you who are here will leave. There will be another crisis. Some of you just operate in a critical situation. That's natural. When you leave, our organizations here in Poland, we got to be ready to continue on, because this, as we've said several times, and from the audience we've heard it, this state of this situation will go into a chronic, from acute to chronic, and we'll stay here with that. And truth be told, we talked about this with authorities on different levels and with organizations on different levels, and there's always some promises and some delivery. And I would say that the ratio of delivery to promise is way more satisfying when talking to organizations than talking to authorities, though we look good on pictures with presidents. And I want you to leave us with capacity to keep on when you're gone. Thank you.
Great comment.
You know, I think that all this experience that we have now, we need to share, we need to multiply this type of projects, because as many as we can help now, we help kids to restore their psychological health, and because it's our future, you know, kids, it's our future. We need to do this. Yeah, exactly. We need to do this now. Yeah. Thank you.
So a very important mission. And now 3 30-second questions.
Quick comment. I'm going to connect you right. The man next to you is Hope Worldwide's country director, who can talk with you specifically about your question. So Vladimir, right next to you, is the connection that you want to make. And I'm Dave from Hope Worldwide. And my question is, we're in the psychosocial support, not necessarily the deeply clinical side. What mechanisms are there in your programs or in any of our programs when there's a medical need, when there's a clinical medical need for medication or more psychiatry, and how do we make those referrals? And is that, you know, a mechanism that we can all work together on, because that small subset of the children and families who might need that medical intervention, you know, how are we getting to that point? Which is, I think it's a small number, but there is that somewhere. So thank you.
Just briefly here, we refer our beneficiaries with need for psychiatric help to psychiatrists, but the problem is that in Poland, psychiatry, especially children's psychiatry, and this is not a new, this is a years. No, it's not about money. It's organization money. It's crap. It's really, we have great specialists, but we have like 5 of them. Okay.
I think there was Okay, fine, you can.
And very quick, my name is Larissa Sugay. I am the physiotherapist and working with the children with the trauma. Just here to answer, just to remark the question about the literacy, about the working with trauma. In Warsaw, we have school which call Społeczna Szkoła Teologiczna, Wyższa Szkoła Teologiczno-Społeczna, and they have the crisis reaction course for Ukrainian people. It's online, totally online, during 3 months or 4 months with translation. So it's free of charge for Ukrainians. So if you want, whatever, who is interested, just reach to me and I will show you the web page. And you would have the really very good graduated course for people who have the highest level. So you would receive the diploma, the people
Thank
who do
you.
not,
Thank you.
they can.
Can we have
Yep.
another question and
Yep.
we really need to.
Not a
this one.
question, just an information. You were asking about how we can influence also the policy and things. In terms of mental health, I am Blandine Bruyère, International Medical Corp, and I'm co-chairing the National MHPSS Technical Working Group in Ukraine with WHO, MOH, and the First Lady Office that you know that is really involved in the mental health promotion and access to for mental health services. So it exists. I mean, there's a very strong awareness about all the actors that we need to coordinate and we need to influence to redistribute the access to mental health services across the country, just to mention this.
Thank you, and thanks for your presence here at this debate. It's important, and I think some of the colleagues developing work in Ukraine, maybe these are ties that we can bring together. Well, I think the time is up for our panel. I would like to thank all our panelists here today for the wonderful work that they are doing and for the thought-provoking debate that we had today. So if we can have a round of applause for them. And thank you all for participating. And I know that there are more questions, but this is what coffee breaks are for. Thank you. Thank you all. And see you around, I guess.